One more winter storm before some spring heat arrives in the forecast. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods, and we definitely got our fair share of active weather on Monday, kind of kicking off a very active week for us here on St. Patrick's Day. Here's a look at the lightning that popped up in downtown Sacramento. That was about noontime. And then as the day started to progress, we got more instability, some breaks in the cloud cover, adding to some daytime heating. With a fairly unstable environment, we had 3 tornado warnings, quarter-size hail, and even a roof partially collapsed on a store. So it was a very active and busy weather day as well as news day. Here's a look at the funnel cloud that was spotted near Waterford. Thanks to Chris Camp for sending that into the ABC 10 weather impact team. You can see a very pronounced funnel cloud there near Waterford. Didn't actually have a report of any touchdowns making it a tornado, but nonetheless, got some very active spring weather for us here, even though technically we're still in winter. Here's a look at the rainfall totals, and it's been a really great March for not only rain but snow. And we're going to take a look at why the snow really does matter in March. Downtown Sacramento, just in the past 5 days or so, about 1 inch and 3/10 for our total there. Sacramento Executive, just over 1 inch. Stockton, about 1 inch and 3/10, and then for Modesto, almost up to about 1 inch and 3/4. Modesto, big winner here. We're already well above average for the month of March. Our snow over the past 10 days, talk about some big numbers here. So many ski resorts saying, hey, you know what? I think we're going to stay open. Might as well, especially for weekend skiing and snowboarding. Check ahead if you plan to go up the hill, because this is right about the point in the season where it's really dependent on if they have the staff to keep things open here. They definitely have the snow. There's no doubt about that. Anywhere from about 45 to almost 80 inches of snow in the past 10 days. These have been really beneficial storm systems because they've been cold. I know it hasn't felt much like spring weather, but these cold storms really help us to provide for that natural reservoir of frozen water that we can slowly meter off as we head through the warmer months when we need the water the most. Now, I'm also mentioned that there is one more storm here brewing in the Pacific. That's not going to be a real big hitter for us, but it will keep us with an active weather pattern through midweek. Extended forecasts are always on ABC 10 Plus. Make sure you download that wherever you stream for free on TV. We have not only our extended forecast, but also weather explainers and our climate specials, which are Emmy Award winning. So check those out there on ABC 10 Plus. All right, let's get through this last storm here. It's a weak one. It's a quick hitter. It's not going to be a high impact storm for us, but it means a bit of wet weather for our midweek outlook as we wrap up winter and head into spring. Our Tuesday started off with quite a bit of fog. That cleared. Sunny skies, nice day to dry out tomorrow. A bit of patchy low cloudiness, but the key difference here is we start picking up some high-level clouds. So that will minimize some of the stable environment that really promotes fog formation. As we head into the evening, we get this quick band of rain coming through. Again, not an impressive storm by any means, and it's not like Sunday night, Monday storm that kind of came in with very little fanfare, but then on the back edge of that, a lot of instability. That is not the case with this storm system. So it's a quick hitter. It's in and out of here. Hits us by Wednesday night. You can see some of the snow popping up as well, and that will bring renewed snowfall to the Sierra. But by about midnight, the valley rain nearly done, leading us to a dry Thursday. A bit of patchy fog reforming there, and we'll keep an eye on that for any problems as we begin our spring season. As far as total accumulation for snow, there's just not a whole lot that's going to be accumulating outside of what we're going to see at about 2 to 4 inches, starting at Alta all the way up over the passes. It could potentially cause some delays, but overall, just not a huge whopper of a system compared to what we've been seeing. Not a terribly low snow elevation. It's such a quick moving storm that even if we get a light dusting, it's just not going to accumulate at lower elevations. We'll still keep that elevation at about 5,000 feet or so. Not quite to Pollock Pines, even though the upper edge of Pollock Pines may get a light dusting of snow. It's not going to accumulate and add to additional problems there. Model rainfall, very weak as well. We're looking at roughly about 1/10 of an inch or so coming in for our rainfall. Our countdown to spring is on. We have 2 days until spring begins. As you can see, the rundown here, Easter 33 days away, 54 from Mother's Day and Memorial Day, kind of the unofficial start to summer, 69 days away. And at that point, we're really starting to turn our attention to the warmer weather in the forecast. We're going to get a little hint of it, though, especially as we head into next week. A look at our vernal equinox. Hey, this is on Thursday, spring beginning. That's when the center of the sun hits directly above the equator, the sun's rays. All areas receive about 12 hours of daylight. So you can see from the Arctic Circle through the equator all the way into the Antarctic Circle, 12 hours of daylight. I always think of the folks at the Arctic Circle or even places like Alaska and the northern parts of Canada. It must be wonderful to kind of dig out of the darkness and get more daylight as we head towards the summer solstice. So kind of a nice change of pace here as we welcome in spring. For the Pacific, we'll do that on March 20th at 2:01 in the morning. So we'll pretty much have a full day of spring on Thursday. And again, the vernal equinox is when the most direct rays of the sun are at the equator. Once we move beyond our spring season, we'll start to see the direct rays move towards the Tropic of Capricorn, indicating that we're at that summer solstice. Building our water year. Now, spring is a really critical time for us to kind of assess how we've done over the rainy part of our year because we're edging towards the drier part of the year. So 50% of our precipitation annually comes from December through January and February. March has been a really decent month for us, but it's right about the end of this month that we'll start to see the beginning of less snowfall and more in the way of snow melt. Snow filling our reservoirs and really helping us to pull through the drier part of the year when the water is at its highest demand, that being right around the end of April all the way into September. September 30th, the water year ends and we restart the whole cycle here. A couple of notes here of significance that came in during the water year. We had that long duration atmospheric river in Northern California at the end of November, kind of giving us a big kickstart to our precipitation totals. Multiple week ARs came in late December, and then everything bottomed out in January. Nothing coming through, or at least virtually nothing. And that is playing a part of where we will stand at the end of the year. We had those Southern California fires as well that were so devastating, especially because they had one of the driest starts to the water year on record. Here's a look at our average monthly rainfall, and this is what I was saying. March is pretty much it for us. Once we get into April, we're lucky to get about 1.5 inches of rain. After that, it's about 3/4 of an inch of rain in May and a little bit coming in June, and then we're at nothing for July and August. So this is it. We need to get everything that we can here. Every little drop will count. Statewide precipitation, when you look at the numbers, it looks pretty healthy, especially for Northern California. But compared to averages, we're still running some pretty decent deficits, especially south of Redding. So once we get to the capital region in Sacramento southward, those deficits grow. Certainly Santa Barbara really standing out there, over 8 inches below average. That's only part of the story, though, because in actuality, what we're looking at is the water supply. We have this huge conveyance network in California, transporting large amounts of water from the northern end of the state to the southern end of the state. A lot of agricultural communities in the center of the state rely on that surface water as well as groundwater, that water underneath the surface. Trying to use a little bit less of that right now to replenish a lot of the groundwater and use the surface water when it's available. So kind of trying to get that balance here moving into the next decade, certainly. Here's a look at where our snow water equivalent is standing right now. And we have just been seeing huge gains in a matter of 7 to 10 days. These numbers have come up dramatically, especially for the central and southern Sierra. It has been just fantastic. March storms coming in. 110% of average to date for the northern Sierra, 87 for the central, 89 for the southern, and that puts our statewide average at 93% of average to date. You can see these beautiful contours extending all the way into the southern part of the state, where earlier in the season, we're not seeing much of anything at all. Our reservoir supplies, again, that's going to tell a much bigger story for us for our water supply than, say, just sheer precipitation totals, because that's just a small portion of the complete diversification that we have in our portfolio for water supply. We're anywhere from about 110 to 125% of average for our water supply, and many of our major reservoirs, Shasta being the largest. In the central part of the valley, also looking great, above 100% of average. Millerton, which has been running a little bit lower, still at about 92% of average. So that too has been coming up. It's a smaller reservoir, so it has to be managed a little tighter than, say, a place like Lake Oroville, which has a storage capacity of over 3 million acre feet. And right now it's running above average. Here's the average line right here, shaded in the kind of the baby blue color here. And the dark blue is going to be the line where we currently stand. So nice numbers right here going into Lake Oroville. It's our second biggest reservoir, Shasta being the largest with over 4.5 million acre feet of capacity. We're at 3.8 million acre feet, still running above average. Things are looking great. We still have that snow melt to come in. So some releases are going to have to start happening. And here's where you can see this is generally the pace that we'll see kind of the reservoirs increase, and then we'll see those drop off as the water need becomes much greater for the rest of California in the dry season. Folsom is a smaller reservoir. It's about 980,000 acre feet, just kind of rounding it off there. And you can see we're still above average here, but not quite as much so as what we have for Shasta and Oroville, just because there's a lot more flexibility. Oroville, by the way, using the new forecast informed reservoir operation to much success this season. So that's been a really big, great story for an innovation and also using the latest technology. Here's a look at our satellites and radar. Now, in terms of the entire Pacific, it still looks quite active, but there is a shift going on after we get to Wednesday. We're under that ridge of high pressure only temporarily today. Beautiful sunshine on this Tuesday, just a little drying out. A lot of folks have been talking about how great their grass is looking right now, and the hills of California don't have that browned out golden glow yet. It's really quite pretty. We get that another quick hit of rain overnight Wednesday into early Thursday, and then we start to get under what we call this zonal pattern. So everything kind of coming in goes straight along this storm track in a very west to easterly fashion. Beyond that, though, this is going to be our dominant player, that high pressure ridge. Now, what have we been seeing in terms of rainfall? It has been quite the past 7 days. As you can see, we kicked things off on Wednesday the 12th, and we just kept things going. We had a nice break Saturday through much of Sunday, actually. That Sunday rainfall really not kicking in until late in the day. That continued through Monday. That was our big active day. For downtown Sacramento, we're below average for the month. But like I said, a big winner this month has been Modesto, running above average. Our precipitation tracker for downtown Sacramento this month, you can see we're at 1.57 inches. We should be at 1.73, so we're really just a tinge behind that. But given the upcoming weather pattern, it's very unlikely that we're going to end up with an average month of water for March. It's just looking really dry. What got us in the deficits? It's all about January. The dry January really did us in. That's our wettest month historically for much of the state, actually, even for the Sierra, but all of us just really dried out. It was a little tenuous there for a moment, too, because we just weren't sure, looking at long-range patterns, how quickly we would turn back to a wetter weather pattern. We did in February, but we have certainly seen seasons where we hit that ridge of high pressure in January, and we just don't flip the switch back into a wet weather cycle. So here's where things stand. Again, the 30-year average, 19.20 inches. We're at 13.89. I was talking to my coworker, Rob Carlmark, and we both were thinking it's not likely we're going to get to that average. If we do, it's going to be an anomalous month for us, either in April or May, because March is trending likely warmer. And that likely weather setup here is in the Pacific Northwest. Now, there's a little hint that we may indeed, by the end of the month, and we're talking the very end of the month, turn to a wetter weather pattern. But there's a lot to still be determined because that's pretty far out in the game here. By Sunday, look at these temperature contours. We're back at it. We're talking about temperatures in the 80s by next week. We still got this cooler air mass over us with highs in the 40s heading into our Wednesday forecast, 50s to near 60 down the hill, with highs along the coast here in the 50s to right around the low 60s. And we'll see that play out as well for much of the Central Valley. So we've got that quick hitting storm overnight Wednesday into early Thursday, and then it is game on. We have a beautiful weekend in store for us here with a lot of yard work, I suspect, getting done Saturday and Sunday. Again, a little bit on the cool side here. Average high about 68, 69 degrees this time of year. We stay in the cooler side of things Wednesday into early Thursday. Spring beginning at 2:01 in the morning on Thursday, and then look at that. We've got highs near 70 over the weekend. We're talking low 80s by the next week. We'll track that cooler weather pattern with potential for some late March storms rolling on through.